Okay, back at it again. We're going to be trying Shye's Masyu today. It's my first time saying that correctly. I looked up how to pronounce it. I've been saying it Masyu this whole time, which is incredibly wrong. But, okay, here are the rules. Draw a non-intersecting loop through the centers of all cells. The loop must turn on black circles and straight through the cells on either side. So, let's look at our example real quick. So it must turn on a black cell, so it must do this. It can't go straight through a black circle. And it must go straight through either cell that it turns on. So let's say it turned like this in the cell. It must go straight through the neighboring cells. For example, you can't do this because then it's not going straight through the cell that it turned into. And the loop must go straight through white circles and turn in at least one of the cells on either side. So you can go straight through this white circle like this, but you must turn at least one of the other cells. So you can't do this because you're not turning in one of the cells on either side. But you could do both. That's perfectly valid, but you just need to turn in at least one of them. Can't do this. And then the main difference between this and regular Masyu is the fact that you must travel through all the cells. So then you can introduce some loop logic into all this, which makes it very interesting. So let's take a look at our puzzle. And so there's a lot of logical deductions you can make almost instantly with full Masyus. So let's look at the corners. How are you going to enter and exit those cells? Because just a whole Masyu is just a giant loop. So you must go in a cell and you must come out of it. So in the corners, you only have one way of doing that. So I'm going to mark that really quickly. Then I'm going to look at my black dots that are near the edges of the grid. Since we must turn on black cells, and we can't go straight through it, we know for a fact that this line is consistent with all possibilities. So you can either turn like this, or you can turn like this. Those are your only two possibilities, and both of those share a common line here, stemming off to the right. So let's look at this one again. Same logic applies. It either turns like this, or it turns like this, both of which have this stem involved. I can make the same logical assumption about this, or not logical assumption, logical deduction about this. Well, we can't turn on there because we can't cross our lines, so therefore, and we can't go straight through this neighboring cell, so therefore we can only travel in these directions for this. Since it's a full Masyu, I'm going to look at this cell and I'm going to say, okay, well, if I go in and out, I can only come in from above and from below. Come in from above and exit below. This cell, this black circle, I know this is kind of haphazard, I'm sorry, but you can only, since you can't go straight through this cell, can't cross, you can only turn in these two directions. This must continue off onto here. This can't turn into there because I need to cross, so it must turn this way. This cell must enter and exit like this. This cell can only continue to the left, and this line can only continue downward. This cell must be entered and exited like so. This cell right here, this black circle, it can't turn in that adjacent cell, so it can't turn that way. It can't go straight through like this because that's just breaking many rules. So the only way that this can turn is through these two directions. That must continue up. This must continue right. This cell must be entered and exited. This black cell either turns like this or it turns like this, but at both of those paths share this. This cell cannot turn there, must turn here. This line must continue off here. This white cell, so let's talk about the white cell logic now. The white cell cannot travel straight like this because then it would branch the loop, so therefore it must go straight through like this. And we can also make deductions about white circles on the edges of the grid because they can't obviously go perpendicular to the edge of the grid because then you'd have to go through the circle and out of the grid, and that's definitely not allowed. So you can only go through white circles on the edges of the grid like this. And since we went straight through this side, we must turn on this cell, on this other neighboring cell, this white dot, and then this line must continue through because we just hit the white dot from one side. This line to connect with everything else must come like this, then go straight through that white circle. This must turn down. Since this can't form a closed loop, all of this is a part of one loop, we're going to continue this down so that they don't connect. This can't connect like this again, so that must continue down. This black circle cannot turn down because it can't go straight through, so therefore your two options are turning like this and turning like this, like I said before, which shares this line. Okay, and in order for this line to connect with the rest of the puzzle, it must go left. This can't form a closed loop, must continue off this way. This would form a closed loop because this whole thing would be closed off, so this can't turn up, so it must turn down. This must turn down, and then this must turn right in order to exit. This must turn right. This cannot form a closed loop, so therefore it must turn right. This to continue must turn right. This can't form a closed loop, so it must turn right. This can't turn that direction anymore, so it must turn this direction. For this to connect with everything else, it must continue out here, and it can't form a closed loop with all this, so it continues out. If this white cell right here was entered straight through horizontally, then you'd have to close this off, making a closed loop, which is not good, so it must be gone straight through vertically. This line to connect with everything else up here must go up like this. This line must go left. This line must go down. This line... Oh yeah, this cell needs to be entered and exited, so we must do that. Oh yeah, and this white cell, or this white circle, must need to turn in one of the adjacent cells, so it must, since it's not turning here, it must turn here, and there's only one direction that it can turn. This can't go down because it would form a closed loop, so it must go like this. And this cell has to be entered and exited like so, and that would go straight through that white cell like thus. This cell must be entered and exited, and the only way to do that is like that. This must escape here, this must escape here, this must escape up here, this must escape here, and in order to get through all of these other cells, you must do it like that. And therefore, we have completed our full Masyu. Masyu. Still saying it wrong. But yeah, all cells are used, and the Masyu rules are complete. Huzzah.